talk about Islam or we talk about Christianity, whatever it is. So these scriptures, whatever they follow, were actually also coming from the same God, but they are designed such a way that, depending on the level of consciousness, they can understand only that.
Correct.
That is how they come. Now, in that case, if it is coming from the same God, and for us, God is always Krishna, so that means these scriptures are also coming from same Krishna.
Yeah.
So
Prabhupada was very open to accept that. He told it also. Yes, continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. So in that case, they really worshipping also Krishna?
That's an important
you follow
question.
that scriptures?
Actually, it will come ahead. See how it is ultimately they are worshipping some aspect of that Supreme Lord. It will come ahead actually. What you're asking, it's a part of discussion of today. Their worship is indirectly worship of the Supreme. But unless they have right understanding, they will not reach that Supreme. Their worship will go to the Supreme. Yeah, okay. But the worshipper, not necessarily. That's why it's important to have right understanding. We were talking about that, right? Sambandha, Abhidheya, 9 to 11 talk about Vidya. Why it came like that? For a very specific reason, Ishopanishad is explained in that manner. Okay. So yes, you are right. Prabhupada told it. Yes, it is that one Supreme Lord whom they call as Allah, we call as Krishna, others call as Jehovah. He told it. He was so Brahman. Actually, Vaishnavas can accommodate all other relative truths. They are relative because they are not talking about the details or description of that absolute. They may explain him in a very indicative manner. Prabhupada says we can explain even private personal life of the Supreme Lord as how, where is his home, who are his dear devotees, whom he loves. To that extent, Vedas can explain. Our Bhakti Shastras can explain. But in other Shastras, it is very vague description. It is, we don't deny that. This doesn't mean we look down, or in our behavior, it should be very considerate. That is true. But we should know the hierarchy.
Understood, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I have one more doubt, Prabhuji. So, this is Srinivas, Prabhuji. Yeah, Krishna. So, okay, I mean, in Ramayana, Prabhuji, Valmiki Ramayana, so towards, I mean, maybe in Yuddhakanda, Sri Rama, when he is down or when he is feeling down, right? I mean, he was asked to pray Aditya, right? I mean, Aditya Hridayam, which is like the sun god, to increase his moral, and because he is coming from the same dynasty, right? Then basically at that time, right? I mean, that is also a very good thing which we generally learn from our childhood, right? Aditya Hridayam. So how do we explain this now? I mean, it is a Surya or sun god is a demigod, but in order to...
What is the purpose? According to that, we choose an object of worship.
Right.
If we want to go to eternal abode, Prabhupada told it, Krishna told it, Yanti Deva Vrata Deva. If you have to go to Devata Loka, then you worship Devas. If you have to attain some health, some rejuvenation, Sri Lord Rama is showing that whom you should worship for what purpose.
Right.
Actually, he is not professing himself as Supreme. Ramayana is showing the ideal behavior. And he does that at specific instances where he declares that how surrender to him is the supreme, like he did in the case of Vibhishana and all, right? But in the case which you are explaining, you yourself told that there was he was fatigued or like that, and he chanted that Aditya Hridaya. Worship of sun is done for rejuvenation of health.
Right.
So if that is the purpose, then Vedas have a object of worship.
Right. So, I mean, particular in some purposes or in particular cases, I mean, by knowingly, we can worship other devatas as well to make ourselves back.
But this does not make sun as supreme. This does not make sun as supreme. And another thing is also that it does not mean that there is a supreme, and if I worship him, will I not get this result? One can get that result. There is nothing which is told that, oh, the supreme worship of supreme is not going to grant me this. That's why I have to go to this. No, that's not.
Mhm.
It is told if one worships, like Krishna says this in Gita or in Bhagavatam, akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati. Whatever desires you have, if you worship me sincerely, that is yajeta purusham param. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. And Krishna will say this in Gita, which we will study soon, repeatedly, that for all your material and spiritual needs, you worship me. He told to Arjuna. So that's a very evolved understanding of spiritual truth. That's more dedicated understanding. But in general, for those who cannot accept Krishna's supreme position, they are not purified. For them, yeah, they are not rejected. Like in other paths, if you don't accept the supreme, you practically are an outsider. You are rejected. But in Vedic culture, it is not.
Understood.
Do you appreciate
Thank
it?
you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to take questions, but I want to complete this something. You know? So let us go with that, and we will take questions at little logical end. So Krishna is actually telling to Arjuna that how he is a recipient of this knowledge because of his being a devotee. So one who takes to devotional service and follows Arjuna, that is the parampara of Arjuna, they truly get this knowledge. This is the explanation of that dhira nam. See, in the shloka, the third and fourth lines tell about how to gain proper understanding of whom to worship. That principle is being explained. If you saw the title, what was the title which was given? All paths don't lead to same goal. Right? That is the understanding. So how do we know which path to take? That is told by taking from Adhira Vyakti, Dhira Purusha. And that was what Arjuna did. He surrendered to Krishna. He was so confused. And that confusion, it happens to everyone at some point or other, no matter how much they have knowledge or strength or abilities, skills, you know. Even to that great Arjuna, it happened. So when we are put into confusion, we have to take the right shelter. When we are put into confusion, we have to take the right shelter. That is the important choice one should make. So when Krishna was accepted by Arjuna as the spiritual teacher, and Krishna guided, Krishna told what is the truth. He clearly explained. And in this sequence of shloka 7.20 to 23, even describes about demigod worship. We have seen this in the earlier shloka. I'm not going to repeat that. What are the results of demigod worship? How they are impermanent, how they are ultimately keeping one in this material world, like a coconut shell. Remember this example? Coconut shell. You are ultimately in that darkness only. So that was earlier discussed. Now the shloka the Prabhupada goes to emphasize about how Krishna is supreme or absolute from the authority of different scriptures. So this is important. Sambhavat. Mataji was reading. Can you please read this? These 2 lines.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In this mantra of Shri Ishopanishad, the word Sambhavata, the worship of the supreme cause, is very significant. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and everything that exists has emanated from him.
Emanated from him. See this word, we very carefully observe this. Sambhava. Now Krishna will quote a shloka which has another word. Prabhupada will quote this. Prabhava. See, Prabhupada is making these connections. Be little observant about it. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. The shloka says Sambhava. Sambhava, Prabhava are actually meaning the same with a different prefix, pra and sam. So what does Sambhava mean? Supreme cause. And Prabhava mean also the same, source or cause. So Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhava. I'm not just the cause of this battle, which people say. I'm not just the cause of this Prithvi. I am not just the cause of this material world. I am even the cause of spiritual world. Then what is left? Everything is caused by Krishna. Aham. There is no statement anywhere else where you will find someone declaring like this emphatically. Aham sarvasya prabhava. Mattah sarvam pravartate. Everything comes from me. And one who knows this, the most important word is this, iti matva. One who knows this, what happens to him? He takes to my devotional service. So one should know this. So for this, how do we know this? For this, Prabhupada will quote one after another so many references. He will quote one from here, what is this? Gopala Tapani Upanishad, which says that he who existed before the creation of Brahma, he who enlightened Brahma with Vedic knowledge is Lord Sri Krishna. The next quotation is from Narayana Upanishad, which says the Supreme Person Narayana, he wanted to create, he desired to create. Actually, he was, before any creation, it was only Narayana. Here, Narayana and Krishna are used interchangeably. Narayana because it is Krishna only whose expansion, Krishna's expansion, but for the specific cause of material. Okay. And it is Narayana from whom Brahma was born. It's Narayana from whom Prajapatis, Indra, Shiva, everyone were born in sequence. Like Brahma was born from Brahma, Rudra was born from Brahma, Prajapatis were born from his bodily limbs, like this. So basically, Narayana Upanishad is saying how the supreme cause is Narayana. Atharva also says the same thing. And Prabhupada goes on to quote many. Narayana Upanishad 4 states, Devaki's son, Brahmanya, Devaki Putra. That's the verse exactly. So identity of Narayana is accepted even by Shankaracharya. Narayana para avyaktat. That's what he says. So Prabhupada is quoting different references here. One more reference comes. Can you read this, Mataji? What I have highlighted, Atharva Veda.
Yes, Prabhuji. The Atharva Veda, Maha Upanishad, also states only Narayana existed in the beginning when neither Brahma, nor Shiva, nor fire, nor water, nor star, nor sun, nor moon existed.
Yes.
The Lord does not remain alone but creates as he desires.
So he creates as he desires. Actually, he expands himself by different amshas. This is technical. Someone called Swayam or Swamsha, another is called Vibhinnamsha. Like this, he expands as he desires. And again, ahead from Mahabharata Moksha Dharma, there is one more quotation. Please read this as I have highlighted. Moksha
Yes,
Dharma.
Prabhuji. Krishna himself stated in the Moksha Dharma, I created the Prajapatis and the Rudras. They do not have complete knowledge of me because they are covered by my illusory energy. It is also stated in the Varha Purana, Narayana is the supreme personality of Godhead, and from him the four-headed Brahma was manifested, as well as Rudra, who later became omniscient.
So Brahma came from him, and from Brahma later Rudra came, and in this way the whole creation came up. So like this, Prabhupada also quotes Brahma Samhita, where it's told that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, Parama Ishvara, that very declaration comes in the very beginning. Anadir Adir Govindaha, Anadi Adi. That shows his primeval cause. He's the supreme cause. So the thrust is that Krishna is the supreme cause. Sambhava. For that, Prabhupada is quoting from many Shastras references. So the conviction that Krishna is all in all is established when one receives the message from undisturbed Acharya with faith and love. This is very important. See, it is not just an intellectual following and worshipping. People may know intellectually, but unless they hear from an Acharya and they follow it with faith and love. Krishna says in Gita some statements which are very, very alarming. He says samshayatma. He says this, one who has doubt, he will not attain benefit. He will not attain, the phala, the promised result. Samshayatma vinashyati. Another place he says ashraddadhana purushaha. He discourages the faithless person. One should not, have such kind of doubt on the teacher and the source, and one should follow the truth once one receives. Once Srila Prabhupada was approached by a reporter, and that reporter was asking, he first asked, Swamiji, can you tell me about Buddhism? And Prabhupada started to describe. Then he told, Swamiji, can you tell about this? Swamiji, can you tell about this? He was asking one after another. Then Prabhupada told, actually, once one reaches to a teacher and he understands philosophically what is supreme, it is his duty to follow. Do not do shopping. Okay, one can understand who is the right spiritual authority or a guru. But after that, one has to dedicate to a path and follow to attain the promised result. Unless one follows, one will not experience the promised result. Like Arjuna did. What did Arjuna do? Did he just hear and leave? No. Before hearing Gita, Arjuna was very disturbed. His sankata or his dilemma was not just what is good and what is bad. He had all choices of the right things only. Either to follow the family duties or his social duties. What one should follow? His administrative duties or his family duties? Kshatriya dharma versus Kula dharma. That was his dilemma. So after hearing Gita, he committed. He wanted to follow. He told this, Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. He declares, oh Krishna, you are the supreme. And he says, whatever you are saying, I am accepting and I follow it. Karishye Vachanam Tava. At the end of Gita, he says this. So Arjuna, he followed Krishna's instruction, and due to which he could become a transformed personality. Like that, one should not just hear, but one should put faith and follow. Yes, scriptures are saying the truth. One can go and find a very scripturally verified for this. Fine. But one should follow. Sometimes we tell the story of a Brahmana and a cobbler. Have you heard this? Sometimes we tell it in the beginning that a cobbler was there who was just doing a simple task. And there was a Brahmana, and Narada Muni happened to meet this people, 1 minute, I'll just show that. And this Brahmana, though he was teaching the Shastras, when he heard that Lord Narayana was trying to elephant. Have you come across, or I'm telling something new? He was trying to send the elephant through the eye of a needle. Then he disbelieved. Oh, Narayana cannot do this. How can anyone do this? Elephant is so big. How can someone send the elephant through the eye of a needle? But when he told the same to this cobbler, he was a simple man, but he had faith. But this Brahmana had knowledge, but no faith. And that cobbler, he just was amazed and he started jubilating. Yes, just see how wonderful my Narayana is. Then Narada asked, don't you disbelieve this? How is it possible? What is not possible for Narayana? When he can put the big banyan tree in this small seed, when he can make such gigantic planets float, and when he can do what even we cannot perceive and imagine, what is not possible? Yes, this is not some blind faith. This is a faith based on Shastri. Right? Blind faith is that all paths lead to same. That's blind. But this is faith based on Shastri. I hope it's clear. Prabhupada this statement is very important. What we just now saw. The conviction that Krishna is all in all is established when one receives message, transcendental message from the source should be very well undisturbed Acharya, and one should put his effort. One should put faith and love and follow it. That's the important. Like it's very much possible. It had been in my case that we might have been following a different worship or different knowledge or something like that. But when it comes to such a genuine source of spiritual knowledge and someone who is practicing it with so much sincerity and genuineness, and it is so transformative, one should apply oneself to that process. That's the point. Okay, so this completes the second part. Now we are going to the third part, where Prabhupada talks about another misconception. Should we go ahead? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So now, Prabhupada, can another devotee take turn to read? Thank you, Mataji, for reading.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, I will take it.
According to Vedanta Sutra.
According to Vedanta Sutra, Sambhuta is the source of birth and sustenance, as well as the reservoir that remains after annihilation. Janmadhyasya yataha. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Shloka 1. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, maintains that the source of all emanations is not like a dead stone, but is abhijna, or fully conscious. The primeval Lord Sri Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 shloka 26 that is fully conscious of past, present and future, and that no one, including demigods such as Shiva and Brahma, knows him fully. Certainly half-educated spiritual leaders who are disturbed by the tides of material existence cannot know him fully. They try to make some compromise by making the mass of the humanity the object of worship. But they do not know that such worship is only a myth because the masses are imperfect. The attempt by these so-called spiritual leaders is something like pouring water on the leaves of a tree instead of the root. The natural process is to pour water on the root, but such disturbed leaders are more attracted to the leaves than the root. Despite their perpetually watering the leaves, however, everything dries up for want of nourishment.
So wonderful in explaining. Perpetually, despite perpetually watering, everything dries. So he is making this point that even Bhagavatam says this, that he is the supreme cause, but not just a cause which is unconscious, but he is abhijna. He is the supreme spirit. He is fully conscious. Abhijna swarat. That's the word which is used there. So sometimes people make this very famous, very appealing, proposal. Instead of worshipping the supreme, they put humanity. They say you worship humanity, Manava Seva, and they equate it to Madhava Seva. Manav Seva is Madhav's, or Jana Seva. Many versions. Jana Seva, Janardana Seva. You serve the people, in need, like that. Very important. I am not telling, we are not discarding this, but Prabhupada says that is not a principle to attain some higher destination. Yes, one should be compassionate. That's in general quality of a Vedic culture, spiritual culture. But if you want to really seek self-satisfaction and also spiritual perfection, then one should worship the supreme cause. And by worshipping the supreme cause, you actually serve all the humanity. And for this, there is an example. The example, okay. So I would like to hear from all of you. Just now we all read. The same way, again, what is the material parallel to the spiritual concept? And what is the principle explained in this analogy? Someone please explain. In this analogy, what is the material concept? What is the spiritual concept? What is the underlying principle?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
So my understanding is that Prabhuji, all the demigods, including Brahma and Shiva, everyone has come from Supreme Lord Krishna only. So Supreme Lord Krishna, in the analogy, he is the roots.
Yes.
And the rest of all, like how the leaves are, they are like demigods and other gods.
Mhm.
So instead of praying
Is
actually
it
the
only
demigods,
demigods? Can you little more check it? Is it only demigods? The leaves, the different parts of the tree are demigods, or anything more?
other gods also, Prabhuji. Basically, Varuna Deva, everyone.
Okay. Does it include in general jivas? All the jivas?
Yes, Prabhuji, also true. Yes.
Yes, because the discussion is about mass of humanity.
Mass of humanity.
About
Yes, yes.
demigod
Prabhuji.
version. Okay, continue.
So yes, so instead of actually praying to them,
Hmm.
you know, we should understand the root is basically Lord Sri Krishna, and we have to pray him.
Right.
And rather than praying or worshipping any other demigods or any other master.
Yes, very right, as you told very well. So when we have to nourish a tree, we water the root, not the branches. Similarly, when we have to nourish and satisfy, or in fact do benefit to all of the people, then we have to go to the root cause, that is the supreme cause. So basically the principle is go to the root. Don't just harbor around the leaves or the other subsidiary causes. So going to the root is important. See, this does not mean that we are not compassionate, or we are not considerate about general people. In fact, the spiritual culture is so much having this concept of Jivadaya. Of course, Prabhupada established this Jivadaya concept in the sense of distributing spiritual literature, spiritual knowledge. But he was not just limited to that. He himself established food for life. If you go traditionally, every spiritual gathering had distribution of prasad, which is what people nowadays call as manav seva, right? When they say manav seva, what do they mean? You provide food to people, you provide some education to people. Yeah, the temples were free food distribution or prasadam distribution centers. There was education given out freely. There was legal consultation given out freely. It was for the benefit of society. Worshipping God does not mean that we are not doing service to the humanity. It is already included. It need not be mentioned. Actually, when people say this, what is their intent? They don't want to do the worship of Supreme. And they're giving these excuses. And those very people who say this, they, if you see their private lives, how much are they doing? It's hardly. I remember this, and I always tell this when this discussion comes. Long back, there was this visit of the famous US President, Clinton. And when he was visiting India, so much of money was spent in just receiving him and making him impress him about India and things like even new roads were made, some new arrangements were made and all like that. And at the same period, in one very famous temple in South, there was a very costly diamond-studded kirita offered to Lord Krishna in a temple in South in Udupi. And that was made such a hue and cry. Are you're serving God with so much. Instead, better you feed poor people. Why are you wasting money on a stone? All this. And those very people are very eager to spend money on some one person of this world who later proved to be very hypocritical. You see where it goes. And what was the benefit which people got? How much money was spent? So much. And those very people who talk about this, they are very spending so much money on their garments and whatnot. So let us not go by such popular opinions. Let's go to the roots of Shastra and see. Worshipping God does not mean you discard being compassionate. In fact, it teaches one to be compassionate on really spiritual platform, which can benefit the very true self. Prabhupada says this, see, Worship of the mass of humanity by rendering bodily soul service, which can never be perfect, is less important than service to the soul. Today we can give food. Tomorrow that person will again be hungry. Okay, tomorrow I may give. Day after he will be again hungry. How many days I will be there next to him to give? Okay, tomorrow I will give education. Okay, he will study and he will make some good living. But will he use for good purpose? The point is to teach the person, the jiva, what's the true goal of it. If he is not able to understand it, at least give a spiritual benefit. Give him holy name, give him holy prasad, and try to inspire him to encourage to encourage some aspect of Krishna consciousness, and that is very much included. The humanity service is included. So Manav Seva, Madhav Seva, this is a very wrong comparison. Madhav Seva is worshipping Supreme. You worship Supreme, and that Supreme says, all are my children, and you serve my children, and I become happy. And you don't become ignorantly worship humanity and forget the shit. You see, Bhagavatam describes the greatest people like Ranti Deva. Have you heard this person? He was so charitable. It describes about Shibi, who cut off his body and gave because he saw all these jivas, even a pakshi, parrot, pigeon, whatever. And he was ready to give his body for taking care of pigeon. Yeah. So they had spiritual vision, and they were ready to go to what extent to serve that soul because he's dear to Krishna. See, that's why we should understand the Shastras properly. Prabhupada says real service to humanity is okay. Let's read this last paragraph. Please read Prabhupada.
Prabhuji, one small question, Prabhuji. Actually, in extension to that analogy, whatever I just said, so some people ask when we say that analogy, okay, so if Krishna is the root, then we have also demigods. So does it mean that we should not pray demigods at all?
Oh, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Normally, what the analogy I say, Prabhuji, for example, sometimes depending on the type of the weather, we had to also take care of the leaves, put them in the shade. For example, Tulsi plant, we will not leave completely in the hottest sun.
Yeah.
So like that, yes, similarly, we also need to pray to demigods, but we should understand Krishna is the supreme.
Very right.
So is it correct analogy, Prabhuji?
Yeah. The root should be watered. That's the essence. The nourishment comes by the root. At the same time, we take care so that the plant doesn't get sun, burned by sun or heat or things. That's fine. See, worship of devatas is to be seen in the context. It is a relative context. So they are not supreme. So a Vaishnava, he can worship devatas. We see the examples in Shastras, but they have the right understanding of the who is supreme. Why am I worshipping? For a material cause, he may worship, there is nothing wrong. But he knows who is supreme. The problem with demigod worship is when one starts to believe that demigod is supreme. And that happens when one is seeking material desires. That's why Prabhupada, in fact, strongly opposed worshipping any devatas. There are some Vaishnava Sampradayas where they worship devatas. Vaishnava Sampradayas. They worship devatas. But that they don't say that their devata is. They say Narayana is empowering all these jivas and we worship them. They are devotees of Lord. There is nothing there. But point is, there is also an aspect of Ananya Bhakti, wherein one just goes to the shelter of Lord for everything. That's a higher, evolved understanding. That is a realization. And Prabhupada told that we should rise to that. That's why he did not encourage worshipping devatas even for material benefits. Worship Krishna directly. Why you take so long time in life? So it should be understood in that context. That's why I told demigod worship is a very specific context. Like that. Okay, so can we read this last paragraph? Yeah.
The living being is perpetually suffering in different types of bodies, from the material miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. The human form of life offers one a chance to get out of this entanglement simply by re-establishing the lost relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. The Lord comes personally to teach this philosophy of surrender unto the Supreme, the Sambhuta. Real service to humanity is rendered when one teaches surrender to and worship of the Supreme Lord with full love and energy. That is the instruction of Sri Ishopanishad in this mantra.
See, this is the real service, which is eternal actually, which is eternally benefit. Is it not? So one can learn, one can get associated with devotional service in any form, but it is of eternal value. If not fully now, but later some other time when the sufficient sukriti is there, it will mature, it will take up. It will not go in vain after death. It is of eternal value. Yeah. So real service. So the Dhira Vyakti, Dhira Purusha, he knows what is really important, what is really beneficial for humanity. And that is what they teach. Prabhupada was a perfect example for this. Do not try to save the dress of a drowning man. Save the person, he told. So very funny just to hear this. You try to save the dress of a drowning man. A man is drowning. Can you just save the dress? What is the benefit? You have the dress, which is anyway dead. Prabhupada save this drowning person. He told that. He tells this in Gita, Bhagavad Gita, first or second chapter. So now, very interestingly, the conclusion of this purport comes in this last section. How do we then worship that Sambhava? That's described here. In essence, I'll try to summarize this part. The simple way to worship is to hear and chant about his great activities. Somebody may think, oh, one needs to know a lot. One needs to spend a lot. One needs to, put effort a lot. No, it's not so. One just needs to accept the supremacy of Lord and hear and chant about him. Srimad Bhagavatam especially glorifies this a lot. Hearing and chanting. Shravanam and Kirtanam. So the very purpose for which Lord comes to this world is so that we can have some subject matter. We can have something to discuss, hear and chant about him. Imagine if Krishna doesn't come to this world only. What will we hear and chant about? What is it that ever we will know about the Supreme? Mercifully, Krishna comes here so that we can, in future, people can hear and chant about him and they can attain him. This is a very powerful method. In fact, this is the first two of those 9 methods. You may know that. Navavidha Bhakti. Prabhupada says this. So people, instead of hearing of Supreme Lord, sometimes people just advertise. You see here, they advertise themselves by inducing followers to sing about them. That person, a true guru will never just engage his followers in talking about him. He will, in fact, tell them to talk about God, which Prabhupada did. Prabhupada always emphasized. He put Krishna in center. So much so that nowadays people may know Hare Krishna, but they don't even know who was the one who made Hare Krishna word famous in this world. They don't know. Many people don't know Prabhupada. They know Hare Krishna. I says Hare Krishna. So much Prabhupada kept Krishna in the center. So ahead it says that one should hear about Krishna as he is from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Very important Vedic scriptures which Prabhupada put so much effort to write about them, to give commentary about them. One should hear. And Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly stresses this, that just by engaging oneself and hearing and chanting, Shranvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, very favorite shloka of Prabhupada. He wrote this in his poem on that Jaladuta. He quotes this. Hridyantasto hyabhadrani vidhunoti suhrit satam. When a soul, a jiva, becomes eager to hear and chant about the Supreme Lord, the Lord becomes very eager. This jiva is so eager to me. And he starts to clean the heart of that jiva. Sometimes we think, I have to clean my heart. No, my effort should be to hear and chant about the Lord. Who cleans the heart? It's Lord who cleans the heart. I cannot clean my heart. He does the cleaning. He takes the chadu pocha and he starts. As soon as we hold beat back, Krishna starts that. We say this, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, is it not? So that purification happens very naturally. And in fact, Lord also guides him. He says this, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena maam upayantite. Prabhupada quotes this 10.10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Those who always do my bhajan. Bhajan means what? Here and with great love they do. Then what do? I give them proper directions. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I guide them. In other paths, a person has to endeavor himself with his realization, with his strength of control of senses and all. But in this path, I take so much responsibility for my devotee. I elevate my devotee. I uplift my devotee. I guide him. In fact, I destroy the ignorance in his heart. The next shloka he says, Tesham evanukam partham. So just by doing this very simple process of hearing and chanting under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, one is assured of success. So much so that even if a person has a very bad background, very sinful background, something like a wrong starting point, a very starting point was not good. But nonetheless, a person took to the path. Prabhupada goes on to say, any low-born person, these words are there, you see, Kirata, Puna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha. These are specific mentalities of people, or in fact, locations of people who actually had a very sinful background. But even such people, Papa, Anyecha Papa, if they take to the shelter of even devotee of the Lord, guidance of a purity, even devotee of the Lord, they become Shuddhyanti, they become purified. Such is the power of taking to the process of hearing and chanting under the guidance of a purity. It elevates a person, it makes him supremely happy. It gives him the highest situation. It gives him the happiness, Prabhupada says this here. Can you read this, Prabhu? This is like almost a conclusion.
This one.
Yeah.
When one attains Brahminical qualifications, he becomes happy and enthusiastic to render devotional service to the Lord. Automatically, the science of God is unveiled before him. By knowing the science of God, one gradually becomes freed from material attachments. And one's doubtful mind becomes crystal clear by the grace of the Lord. One who attains this stage is a liberated soul and can see the Lord in every step of life. This is the perfection of Sambhava as described in this mantra of Sri Ishopanishad.
Yes. How one can attain this supreme destination, one can actually rise above one's attachment and doubts and attain purification and ultimately attain that eternal abode. That is explained in this. Actually, this is nothing but translation of those famous verses starting from Shushrusho, Shraddha Dhanascha, and it goes on up till, Bhityate Hridaya Granthi. These are all very famous verses coming in the second chapter of first canto. One may refer to them if you want more details about it, but Prabhupada has summarily given it here. So it is so very important to understand the true, I think this concludes here. Yeah, true spiritual knowledge for which we need to approach a dhira. In this particular purport, we saw two analogies. One is about train, how all paths don't lead to same goal. Different paths take to different places. And we also saw the analogy of the root, watering the root and watering the leaves. Analogies are important. I always highlight them because they explain a very important concept by which we can even remember them very easily. And for your exam also they are important. In that sense, it's a very important part. So one has to choose between what path, what worship one take. One is guaranteeing actually eternity. worship of Supreme Lord. Another is, maybe giving something of this world, repeated birth, like that. Anyway, it goes to mantra 14. To summarize, we again will see these 4 points. Someone please read this and we'll conclude for today.
Ishopanishad mantra 13.
These 4 points you can.
Okay, brother. All paths lead to same goal is a foolish theory. Hear from Dhira, sober person, and understand. Lord Sri Krishna is Sambhava, the supreme cause. Follow in footsteps of Arjuna. Serving humanity is serving God is a myth. What are the roots of tree? Not the leaves and branches. Simple method to worship Supreme Lord.
So what was the simple method?
Hearing and chanting.
Hearing and chanting, correct. If we are not able to catch anything in the discussion, this is the most important. Thank you very much. I stop it here. If you have any comments just before we end for today. Actually, today Prabhu is busy. Sorry for the disappointment. He will join tomorrow or next session. He will only continue. And in fact, he told me he will join if it is possible.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji told he'll be joining in few minutes.
He told, okay. So any of you have any comments before we, okay, one Mataji is raised. Darsh Mataji.
Prabhuji.
Yeah.
My name is Surabhi Prabhuji. That's my son's name.
Sorry, yeah.
No problem, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, it says that all paths leads to same goal is a foolish theory, right?
Correct.
I understand that if you worship demigods, you will probably go to their planet and you worship. You will not achieve the perfection of life, or you have to come back. But eventually they will be, achieve the eternity, right?
They have to come to the knowledge. It will not happen eventually or automatically. Otherwise, why do Shastras say to approach a right person?
But Prabhuji, there is a shloka in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna says that everybody is following my path only.
Correct.
Everybody.
Yes, he told that in the 4th chapter. He told, Mama Vartmanu Vartante Manushya Partha Sarvashah. The path is that everyone is approaching the same truth. But people, they sometimes stop in the middle, understanding this is the destination. Sometimes some people are going opposite in that path. That one path is there. There is one big path. And at the really end, there is Supreme Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Okay. But how much do everyone go? Some people may go really the full path. Some people may stop differently. What does it mean? This actually what it means? It is nothing but when we say Devatas, they are representing the Supreme Absolute Truth to some extent. When we say Brahman, Brahma Jyoti, some say, right? Worshipping Brahma Jyoti or meditating on Brahma Jyoti. That is also a part of the Supreme Absolute Truth. The Supreme Absolute Truth, it encompasses, it accommodates everything which we aspire as the goal of life, and it has something beyond it. It has something beyond it. So when we are following, suppose someone comes across a worshipper of Devata, yes, they are worshipping that Supreme, but indirectly. Krishna says this, avidhi purvakam. That's not the right method. And he says in Bhagavad Gita, alpamedhasam. These are the words used in 9th chapter and 7th chapter. Krishna dedicates 3-4 shlokas in both of them, talking about worship of Devatas. Yes. So one can see what is Krishna's final instruction. He's telling that, yeah, those who are less intelligent, they think they can get some quick benefit from Devatas, they worship. But actually that's indirect worship of me only. In fact, I give them the strength, I give them the Shraddha, I give the Devata the power to bless this soul, I give the Shraddha to the worshipper to worship the Devata. So what is left? The intelligent thing is, okay, you go to the person who is doing all this. Is it not? So one should come to the knowledge, and Krishna tells this, it's avidhi purvak. So better to take to direct worship, and that will come when we receive knowledge. It will not come automatically. As I told earlier, the worship may reach, You will get benefit of worshipping some aspect of Supreme. But unless we have the right understanding, we will not go to that Supreme. That's the important point. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I also a small daughter. Prabhuji, so Lord Vishnu, or to that point Brahma or Shiva, all these people are energies of Krishna only, right, Prabhuji? Finally.
Yeah. They are empowered by Krishna. Vishnu, when we talk about Vishnu, he is an expansion which is called direct expansion. It's called Swa Amsha. But when it comes to Brahma, others, they are called Vibhinna Amsha. I use that word a little explaining. They are expansion. Everyone, everything is coming from Lord only. But there is hierarchy. So Vishnu is worshipping Vishnu is as good as worshipping Krishna. According to Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, Krishna is the source. Swayam Bhagavan, we say it. Ete Chamsha Kala Pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. That's the Srimad Bhagavatam source.
Okay, so indirect expansions actually are not really equivalent, but direct expansion is the Lord Vishnu, so you can pray him as equivalent to Krishna.
We say separated expansion, Vibhinna Amsha, and direct expansion or Swa Amsha. So yes, worshipping Vibhinna Amsha will not give eternal result, but worshipping Swamsha will give eternal result. Say suppose you worship any Vishnu avatar, Narasimha, Vamana, Rama. Yes, but Krishna in Brahma Samhita it's told Rama Adimurti Sukala Niyamena Pushpam. Like that.
Understood, Prabhuji. Right, thank you.
Thank you. I conclude here. I also have to leave for another class. Yes, Prabhu has come. I kept them engaged till the time you come. Hare Krishna. Okay.
I also joined not for doing something. I just come to introduce His Grace Chaitanya Prasad Prabhu to all of you. His Grace Chaitanya Prasad Prabhu is my very dear friend, my batchmate. We all worked together at Bangalore long back in 2008, 2009, 10. Joined together, and he is a university topper of Vishweshwara Technological University, Bangalore, State RVC. Got double-digit rank in CET in 2004, and his name is still there if you go to RVC College in BTU. And he's very, very Shastri, and he's going to take the first chapter, Bhagavad Gita, first chapter to sixth chapter, first unit is going to take. So, Chaitanya Prabhu for volunteering, for helping me out, because already our syllabus is lagging. So I thought instead of calling off the session today, hope you had a nice, it's like a promo, it's a trailer of his first unit of You Got It. So we'll surely continue from Monday from 6:30 to 8:30, and then we'll try to conclude once we end. So nectar is awaiting for all of you. So in the form of first unit of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, thank you, Chaitanya Prasad Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
So
Thank
we
you so
have a
much,
nice,
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
very beautiful class, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
We're ending today half an hour early, so that we can on this weekend we can try to chant more rounds, do Chorastakam. I've come to one place for Chorastakam, so we have a program. Therefore, I could not take today. Monday we'll try to. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.